Welcome back to the Area 480 podcast, where some of us are happy to have that man out of the AFC North. Sorry, Justin.
Well, I saw that Miles Garrett was getting traded, and I was happy to finally see him get out of to purgatory. But now he's coming out west and gonna cause more terror on a team that's fighting with Jacoby Brissett to give him a pay raise. So obviously, it's not gonna be a good year for us. But it could always be worse. You could be Jared Verse going to the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, we'll take him over Miles Garrett. So
Well, what's good is by the time the Cardinals are good, you won't have to worry about Miles Garrett that much anymore, probably.
he'll probably be retired when the Cardinals are
Yeah.
good.
All right. Anyways, though, you guys want to do the usual and start off with the MLB this week, or
Oh wow, we're just gonna glance right past that, buddy. I'm in a podcast with a Steelers fan and a Bengals fan. At least, I mean, the actually I can't even talk because the Steelers beat us in the
Super?
freaking Super Bowl.
Yeah, but
But
neither of our teams have Super Bowls, so
no, I can't.
it's not like you
I
can
can't sit
say
here and let
anything.
this slander go on. But anyway, yeah, I guess we can start with the MLB.
Yeah, yeah. Say something bad about the Bengals.
Yeah, the Bengals don't want to pay Shamar Stewart, and they lost Trey
What?
Hendrickson.
They
What
got a
else?
better player.
Just keep going down the line.
All right. I know we're all excited to get into the NFL, but I think we should reel it back in and talk about the MLB like we usually do. Um, so yeah, I guess we could start out with the little update of the standings just 'cause it's been a while since we've done that. Um, we'll start in the AL, I guess, just since it's not as good. The Rays, as of now, we're recording on June 5th, but the Rays are half a game up on the Yankees in the AL East, and then the Orioles, Blue Jays, and Red Sox rounded out. They're all below 500 and 8 or more games back. And then in the AL Central, it's a close race between the Guardians and White Sox, with the White Sox being 2 games back. And then it goes Twins, Tigers, and Royals at the bottom. In the AL West, it's still really close with the A's and Rangers being 2.5 games back each of the Mariners, with the Astros and Angels at the bottom. And then NL East, the Braves are still the best team in baseball. They're 8.5 games up of the now over 500 Phillies, followed by the Nationals, Marlins, and Mets. In the NL Central, the Brewers still remain on top, but it's pretty competitive throughout, with the Pirates, Cardinals, Cubs, and Reds. The furthest team back is only 6.5 games back. Every team's over 500 as of now. In the NL West, the Dodgers are starting to pull away, with the D-backs being 6.5 games back. And then it goes Padres, Giants, Rockies. For the wild card, the Yankees hold the top spot in the AL, followed by the White Sox and A's. And then the Rangers are tied for that final spot with the A's. And then the Orioles and Blue Jays are half game back each. Then the National League, the Pirates hold the top spot. The Cardinals and D-backs and Phillies are all tied for that last spot. And then the Padres are half game back, and the Cubs and Reds are 1 and 1.5 game back. So pretty competitive throughout some of the divisions and mostly the wild card race. What do you guys think about the standings so far?
I think the one crazy thing I noticed was the D-backs being in second place at 6.5 games back, and then the last place NL Central team being 6.5 games back is kind of wild. And just the Rockies are 16 games back, which kind of looks like that's the furthest out of any division. Yeah,
Yeah, it's close with the Mets.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's the Rockies are always so I feel like they're just never gonna have a chance. But yeah, the D-backs have pulled ahead of the Padres. I mean, it doesn't really mean much in that division. It's the Dodgers division to lose every year. But yeah, that's huge for the wild card. We'll be talking about the Padres in a second. The AL is pretty crazy. The last team for the wild card, both the A's and Rangers are both under 500, and then every team that's close to them have all looked pretty abysmal throughout the season, but they also have a chance in the wild card somehow. But yeah, the Rays and Guardians and Yankees are all looking pretty strong up there at the top.
Yeah. I mean, at least the AL West is starting to look a little more normal. It's odd seeing the Rangers and Astros below the Athletics, but at least the Mariners are at the top again.
Yeah, the Astros, I just saw got Josh Hader back, so hopefully that'll help their pitching. and they can go back to competing for the division. I mean, 5.5 games back at this point in the year isn't anything like too crazy. And they're only 3 games back of the wild card, so especially at this point in the year, I mean, you shouldn't be out of hope if you're an Astros fan.
Yeah.
It's good to hear they got Josh Hader back. I always liked him. He throws that fastball that has a little bit of movement on it, which I always thought was pretty interesting, especially for a team that's kind of struggled this year with injuries. To get one of your solid bullpen arms back is going to be a big upside for this team.
Yeah, MLB The Show still needs to fix the glitch on him, but other than that, yeah.
What glitches don't they need to fix?
Yeah, that's it for the standings. Just some quick news. I'm sure there's more, but this is just, the most important stuff as we like just go through the middle of the season here. Probably the biggest news that, everyone's talking about, Judge goes on the IL. He has a stress fracture in his right rib, and I believe he had his collapsed lung as well, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, I've heard people saying since he's going to be out for about 2 months that there's going to be an AL MVP this year who's not Aaron Judge or Shohei Ohtani for the first time since I think Ohtani came into the league. Or that's not true because Jose Abreu won in 2020. But I think since then. Um, so that'll be pretty crazy to see. But yeah, what do you guys think about what that means for the Yankees and, if you think anyone else is going to win MVP over him?
I think, we kind of talked about the Dodgers dealing with injuries and just how their depth that they won't really be that affected. I think it's kind of different. Aaron Judge plays a really big role for the Yankees, and I don't think it'll set them back too far. I think they'll be able to stay in second place. I don't know if they'll surpass the Rays without him, but he does make a big difference for that team. It can kind of hurt to lose that guy for 2 months. I think they won't really miss out on the playoffs or anything because of it, because they do have pretty good depth and a decent lineup. But it is going to be weird to see somebody other than Judge being the MVP or even in the MVP race at that point.
Yeah, this is one of the league's like biggest stars, and it's crazy to see him go down for this amount of time, especially with the injuries that he has. It's kind of a random set of injuries. Usually you see stuff that's a little bit more common, like leg or ACL injuries, but something like this major is pretty crazy. Um, Obviously they're gonna have to find someone to fill that massive hole in the defense and lineup. Maybe, they do have a Golden Glove out there looking for a spot in Anthony Volpe that could possibly get some reps at right field. So we'll see what
he'll
happens
be
with that.
he'll be the Yankees' O'Neal Cruz. They'll just move him into the outfield because he's so bad at the infield.
Yeah. They also, Jason Dominguez and Stan are on the IL too, so they're missing a lot of their DH and outfield depth. But
Yeah,
looks like today in the outfield they have Grisham and Bellinger as usual, and then Spencer Jones is in right. Spencer Jones is 3 for 3 today actually, so maybe he'll fill in just fine. I know he
yeah,
hasn't really looked great to start his big league career, but you never know. But yeah, they have good depth, like Max said. They have guys that can play the outfield. I think Max Schumann has been out there. Um, I mean, Osvaldo Cabrera, I think, can play the outfield. Um, I mean, I'm pretty sure they'll be fine. He's out 4 to 6 weeks, which is a decent amount of time, but I think they should be thankful he's not out for like a whole season or anything like that.
yeah. It's a long season, and I think you could look at a pro out of this and kind of fit, like think about how Spencer Jones is going to get a lot more opportunities. They're really going to force in their hand to use him. So maybe he'll be able to work out some of the struggles he had. Like Gabe said, he's 3 for 3 today. So, maybe he can keep that rolling and just heat up and work through all this stuff. He doesn't just get sent down if he has a bad game. That'll be nice.
Exactly, make it hard for your coaches to not play you.
Yeah, we did talk about when he got called up how he would have a hard path to playing time with how good their outfield is, but now that Judge is down, he might be able to sneak into that DH spot or something. But as of picks to win the MVP now that Judge is out, I mean, obviously there's Jordan. I know he doesn't field, so some people might argue with that. Um, obviously, Murakami is looking really good, but he got hurt. Byron Buxton could be a sneaky pick just because obviously, he has his own set of injury history, but um, He's always playing good defense in center, and if he's hitting it, continues to hit as he is right now, he could be up there. Um, Ben Rice has looked good. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of guys to choose from, but you never know. Judge could come back and still play, at his peak. Then, I mean, he could make a case, but missing that much time, I don't know if he'll be able to win it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it'd be fun to kind of see Byron Buxton have a healthy season and we could see what he does because he is a top player when he is healthy. It's just like you kind of covered, he has a history of injury problems and just, heating up and then it just kind of all goes downhill for him and he doesn't get healthy again. I really do want to see him have a full healthy season again.
That's what I was gonna say. I was just gonna mention that I would like to see a Byron Buxton MVP season. Um, he was, obviously kind of battling for a starting spot on Team USA. Like, you know, was on and off, but since the season started, he's kind of locked back in and started playing like his true self. So without Aaron Judge and giving him a spot to, if he, granted that he's healthy, getting an MVP season out of him would be pretty fun to watch.
Yeah. Just a couple other names, I guess, like Shea Langoliers, just because he's catching, he's hitting really good. Nick Kurtz. Um, but yeah, outside of all those guys, maybe Christian Walker, who knows?
Yeah,
Probably not.
Nick Kurtz, dark horse.
Um, yeah, he's been pretty good. Anyways,
Maybe,
um,
maybe even a Josh Rojas
I
sneaky
mean,
pick.
1 for 1 with the go-ahead single so far this season. But yeah, to move on, talk about the Padres. They've been really struggling. I know Manny Machado came up with a quote and said that they've been playing like dog crap. He obviously didn't say it like that, but just a testament to how bad they've been playing. They've lost 5 in a row. They're 1-9 in their last 10. They've fallen all the way from second in the division, like super close with the Dodgers, to 7 games back and in third place. They don't even hold a wild card spot anymore. Um, I know we talk about their bullpen and you guys make fun of me because of Mason Miller, but what do you guys think it is with this team? Like, obviously the offense, they rank 27th in run, 30th in hits average, on base percentage, and OPS, 29th in slug. But like their pitching has like pretty decent. So, you think they can still save their season if they fix their offense, or you think all hope is lost?
Yeah, I think they just need their guys that have been their guys to kind of show up. Ramon Liriano is not a name you expected to be one of their better hitters off, like one of their better offensive players. And Tatis just being kind of just having a rough start to the season. I think they just need their guys to start heating up offensively.
Exactly. I don't think all hope is lost, especially with how we've seen them play at the beginning of the season when they jumped the Dodgers for a little bit. This just kind of seems like one of those teams that can be a contender. It just seems like there's always one thing that they're like missing when it comes to being a contender, and that's just kind of what's holding them back. So hopefully they can get the offense under their feet and maybe make a push.
Yeah, obviously when you have a lineup with, Fernando Tatis, Machado, Jackson Merrill, even like Xander Bogaerts, Gavin Sheets, like you expect that offense to be one of the tops in the league. So to have it be like the very last in a lot of categories. I know they're missing some people like Ramon Laureano just went on the IL. They're missing Jake Cronenworth. Luis Camposano started the season off hot and then got hurt. So I know they're missing some pieces, but like, none of those pieces are like an Aaron Judge or something, where if you miss them, you're like, dang, our offense is kind of cooked now. Like, they just need their core guys to start getting going again, and they haven't been able to so far.
Yeah, this is kind of a a decent team not put together with the assistant cast is pretty decent. Obviously, it'd be nice if they had someone like a Jason Hayward. Still, I know he's no Aaron Judge, but he obviously ended up retiring. Just don't know why I felt like bringing him up, but he's a Padres legend.
That's your go. That's why. Um, and then yeah, so Padres struggling, but I feel like they can pick it up.
Yeah, I guess if that's it, we just talked about my Padres legend and Jason Hayward. We're gonna talk about my Red Sox legend and Brian Bayo. He obviously got sent down to the minors.
Yeah. He's been in like he hasn't really been in his normal starter role this year, which, coming into the season was a huge possibility just because they added, Sonny Gray and Ranger Suarez and then obviously Garrett Crochet. But even with the injuries and inconsistencies in their rotation and just team overall, he hasn't really been able to, capture that starter role. And, he's been a big bulk guy this year. But then he got the chance to start last week and got blown up, and so they sent him down. But yeah, I know they gave him that extension, so that's kind of sad to see him get sent down like that.
Yeah, I think it's also kind of to show him to kind of keep his emotions in check. I don't really think, I mean, I know he's, like we said, he's kind of struggling a little bit, but, he's had tantrums on the field. He's gone out in press conferences, kind of not bad mouthing, but hinting at being disappointed on the way he's been used on that Red Sox team. And I just think it's more of like to send a message as well.
Exactly. This is a little bit biased from my point of view because I'm a big fan of his, especially on MLB The Show, and he's one of the best cards in the game. It's sad to see him go out like this. Obviously, he's, kind of hinting at stuff that he doesn't like from the organization, but at the same time, this is a team that was heavily praised going into the season, and the way they started is just not how anyone would have thought they would have gone. So being able to, I don't recommend it, but calling out up a little like upper management or other players, not the best idea, but at the same time, someone's got to kind of light a fire, even though kind of a wrong messenger with the way he's been playing, unfortunately.
Yeah, like I understand where the frustration's coming from, but you really can't have an attitude like that.
Yeah, and obviously, if you look at the stats, they're not great at all. And this is a Red Sox team that, with how weak this AL is, if they can get going, they could easily capture a playoff spot. So just to send the message that they're still trying to win, like sending down one of the players they gave that extension to. Just showing that they're still in it and still trying to win, even with the tough division they're in. But yeah, I guess since we talk about the Red Sox pitching struggles, we can talk about some of the D-backs pitching struggles. Corbin Burns, who had been rehabbing his Tommy John surgery that he got. It was coming out that he was nearing a return and could be back, post All-Star break. Turns out that he strained his teres major, and is probably going to be out for the whole season, most likely. So, just a huge blow to that staff who's been really struggling. Um, they hold the playoff spot right now, but, you know, the starting pitching outside of their games against the Giants and Rockies have been really struggling with. Uh, with the exception of Eduardo Rodriguez, somehow he's been their best starter this year. But you look at the ERAs on some of these guys with Ryan Nelson, who I know just had a quality start against the Dodgers, but Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, Ryan Nelson, you know, Michael Soroka has been pretty good, but those other three have ERAs near or above 5. I believe Zach Gallen is like the worst qualified starting pitcher in the league. They just sent down Brandon Pfaadt. What do you guys think about this D-backs pitching situation and what it means for their future this season?
I think it's a major blow. I was excited to see Corbin Burns get more innings with them, and just as a baseball fan in general, it kind of sucks to not see him play baseball because he is, when he is healthy, one of the best to pick up a baseball. And like you said, I think it's the D-backs just they need pitching. They need their starters because their offense is good. They're second in the NL West somehow with two decent starters, and the rest are kind of like you kind of covered, just not having a good season. So I think it is a big blow. I know, there's some time between the All-Star game and now, but that sucks. Corbin Burns could have been their guy. I'm not going to say, he's going to be the best pitcher ever coming from an injury, but I feel like there's a shot he could be better than the other options. It is odd, it is odd to see Erod be the best pitcher for that team, but yeah, I think that's just the one thing the D-backs lack is pitching, and that's kind of been the story. It's either starters or bullpen. They really just can't figure it out year by year, and I'm glad they've stuck with the same, game plan of having a good offense, but you kind of need those pitchers, and I think they made these moves on the off season with Merrill Kelly and Zach Gallen extension, or bringing Merrill Kelly back and extending Zach Gallen, and then expecting to have Corbin Burns back. It's a major blow. So I think it will kind of screw up their season.
Exactly. Kind of we're like talking about what Max said. He is one of the best pitchers in the league coming, to the Diamondbacks in his first year. I was really excited to see what he could do with this team that just was fresh off a World Series appearance. Um, it was obviously going to be huge. Obviously the staff has some injuries throughout, missing AJ Puck and Justin Martinez as well. So pitching, which has been a struggle as of recently for this Diamondbacks team the past couple seasons, especially during that World Series run when they're letting up walk-offs, is something you don't want to see. And unfortunately, as of right now, I would say he still has a couple years left on his contract, but it's looking like one of the worst contracts ever. 210 million guaranteed. He's played 11 games, so obviously, as of right now, it looks kind of rough. But obviously, he's going to come back. He's going to do what he needs to do. But hopefully, it's still within the window where they can make another World Series, especially with the roster that they have.
Yeah, I thought with him coming back and then obviously Puck and Martinez coming back, even though their bullpen has been surprisingly pretty good this season, um, I thought those would be like the reinforcements they would need on the pitching side come trade deadline. But now it looks like they're going to need to trade for a starting pitcher if they want to compete, just because, Gowan and Ryan Nelson and, these guys have been so bad. But, um, I would also think they would need like a DH first baseman, and maybe like outfielder, maybe do a move similar to the Tommy Pham move they did in 2023. Just because Jorge Barrosa is out there a lot and Tim Tolwa. You'd like to see a more formidable name in the lineup than those two guys. But outside of that, I don't think they really need to do much besides just let Puck and Martinez come back.
Yeah, and this is one of those teams where it seems like the starting pitchers are trying to compete to see who can have the higher ERA by the end of the season, fortunately. Um, but also they did just call up Lou James Groover. Just wanted to mention that.
Hmm.
I was pretty high on him watching him at the spring breakout game when I worked for the Diamondbacks. Um, so he was pretty fun to watch. I'm excited to see what he can go out there and do.
Yeah, it sucks they had to send down Jose Fernandez to bring him up,
I was gonna
but
say, yeah, he's been playing pretty good.
um, hopefully Pavin Smith will get off my team someday. But yeah. Anyways, moving on from the D-backs. Um, Connor Griffin was placed on the IL with a flexor strain. He's not supposed to miss that much time, but it just sucks to see him go on the IL with how fun he's been to watch recently. And I know he struggled coming out of the gates, but he got hot there for a little bit. And the Pirates are looking pretty hot right now too. I know they just got Jared Jones back, so the sooner he can come back and help them, keep competing, the better.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you kind of said, like you said, he's been really fun to play as of late. I'm glad that the Pirates kind of have been sticking with him, letting him work out these the struggles he's been going through, and it's shown that when you let him play and just work through these problems, he could actually be a breakout player like we expect him to, and we signed him for that extension. You want him to be your guy. I don't like seeing him hurt, but he wasn't playing like the biggest role for the Pirates, so it's not going to really hurt us. But that difference could also mean that second place to almost first place spot because of how close the Central is. But I think we'll be okay.
Exactly. This is a solid Pirates team with like some good young players on it that are just working out like, some of the like minor issues that they're having, transitioning to the bigs, but this is going to be a team that in a couple seasons could be competing for a potential World Series if they make some right roster moves and people start to fall into the places that they're supposed to be, and a potential Paul Skeens, figuring out how to keep the ERA under one again, or yeah, under two or whatever again. So hopefully we can see that from him.
Yeah, I know
Yeah,
I know he wasn't playing great. He's kind of striking out a lot, league average hitter, but in just 50 games, he almost had two WAR and 14 stolen bases. So, he's definitely been a help, but I think they'll be fine because he won't be out that long.
yeah. I mean, we still have Brandon Lowe, we have Spencer Horwitz, Nick Gonzalez, Jared Trill. Like those aren't crazy names, but that infield can kind of keep it together while he's out. Like we're not at a total loss. I mean, sometimes it feels like O'Hearn and Lau are playing a bigger role than Connor Griffin. I mean, they're vets or not vets, but they've been in the league longer than him. You expect more out of them, but like, I'm not totally mad about it.
Yeah. All right. And then our last bit of news here, Christopher Sanchez, who had his um 50 and two-thirds inning scoreless streak snapped by the Padres a few days ago. Um, I believe the Phillies still won the game. And they've been closing in on this wild card spot. They're tied with the D-backs and Cardinals for the last spot. They've been really hot ever since firing Rob Thompson. They've won three in a row. They're winning right now. What do you guys think about, just that historic streak being snapped and what it means for him and the Phillies?
I mean, if you're Christopher, obviously that's something that you're gonna be a little bummed about because you've been having such a good streak. But obviously, it's only a couple months into the season. It was gonna probably get snapped at some point. Um, I don't think it's gonna really affect them that much. Going like the record would have been cool to have it keep going, but like the streak that he was on to keep going. But it's not gonna. I don't think it's that big of an issue that he let up. Um, what was I talking? My fault. I was tripping. I was thinking of someone else. Obviously, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. His confidence is still going to be up there. He knows he can go 50 scoreless, so it's going to just obviously keep pushing away, keep doing what he's doing, and he's going to keep pitching the way he has been.
Yeah, I mean, he's been dominant this season. It was really fun to watch. I think it'll kind of bring his head back under the clouds. You're not as worried about that streak. Maybe it's a relief almost to kind of have that off your plate. Obviously, it's cooler to keep that going, but I'm sure there's a positive way to look at this, and he'll keep doing what he's doing. He's been dominant all season so far, and I don't think it's really going to affect him that much.
Yeah, just a quick little thing just to shout out that, he did it, but it's over now. He can always start again, I guess. But yeah, that's kind of all we have for the MLB unless you guys got any last second ads.
No, I think I'm good to move on.
All right. I guess we can get in what's kind of turned into the um, biggest part of the podcast this week out of nowhere. But you guys want to get into the NFL?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, I guess we'll just get it out of the way first. Everyone saw it. Miles Garrett traded for um Miles Garrett traded to the Rams for Jared Verse and some picks. The Rams do what they do. Obviously, before they won that Super Bowl, they went out and traded for Matt Stafford and um, Von Miller, and just kind of built that team instead of F them picks to get Aaron Donald that Super Bowl before he retired, and now they go out and try to get Matt Stafford another Super Bowl before he retires and go get Miles Garrett.
Yeah, maybe even an Aaron Donald comeback.
Yeah, that's been rumored too.
It's just starting to become a team of how bad can we beat the Cardinals this year. It seems like every team has been trying to do that in the NFC West, and it's going to be another season where the Cardinals get the brakes beat off of them by every team in their division. So it's not looking good for a Cardinals fan like myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure this is more of a way to counter the Mariners, and not how to, or not the Mariners, counter the Seahawks, and not how to, harp on the Cardinals. Don't worry.
Yeah, I don't know how much of the fourth quarter Miles Garrett will be playing against them. Um,
We're not
but
gonna. The Emerald City Route Artist isn't getting another Super Bowl win.
so the full trade is Miles Garrett to the Rams, and the Browns get Jared Verse. The Rams 2027 first round pick, 2028 second round pick, and a conditional 2029 third round pick. Um, a lot of people, saying good trade for both sides. I tend to agree with that just because Jared Verse, he's obviously not Miles Garrett. He's not a two-time Defensive Player of the Year. He doesn't have the most sacks in a season ever, but he's a lot younger than Miles Garrett. He's still really good. Helped the Rams get to where they were last year and be one of the best defenses in the league. Um, you know, he's a great pass rusher, great run defender. He's still super young. And then the first round pick, it's going to be a late first round pick just because it's the Rams first round pick, so you might be picking last pick of the first round. But if anything, it could be used to trade up maybe if they don't like their own pick. And then, just some picks down the board, which are always useful.
Yeah, just starting from like the Rams side, Gabe kind of mentioned how one of the mottos they've been using, even like the owner, I believe, was wearing a shirt that said "F them picks," which seems crazy, but when you're picking people up like Puka Nakua in the fifth round, obviously these first round picks don't really matter too much if you're able to find gems down later in the draft. And looking from the Browns' perspective, you're getting Jared Verse, who could be that Defensive Player of the Year candidate or even winner with a little bit of time and figuring still adjusting to the league. He's I I think he's one of the better linemen in the league right now. I when Gabe texted me that um Miles Garrett was traded to the Rams, I was like, how do we not mention Jared Verse in that trade? Also, one of the kind of things developing is first day he just showed up wearing number 8 to practice, even though Dylan Gabriel's wearing it.
Yeah.
And Dylan Gabriel's kind of had a few words about that to the media, but at this point, I heard someone say if he got a Chipotle meal out of it for his jersey number, he'd be lucky.
Yeah, I mean, you're what, like third or fourth string quarterback arguing the for a number over the guy you just traded for your Hall of Fame edge rusher. I don't
Yeah,
know who wins that battle.
yeah, Dylan Gabriel's not, he is not a caliber player Jared versus to be arguing over it anyway.
I need you to pay me money for my jersey when I'm the third or fourth string quarterback on a roster, and we just traded the all-time sack leader in a single season and a two-time defensive player of the year for this guy, but gotta keep my number.
Yeah. I'm assuming we'll do like a full prediction thing for the NFL season before it starts, but does this put the Rams as the Super Bowl favorites for you guys, or at least, to come out of the NFC after this move?
Yeah, I think even the addition of Aaron Donald's going to happen, and I think they got the Super Bowl locked.
Exactly. The Seahawks, who just came off a Super Bowl, did lose some key pieces this offseason. Still obviously a good team, but I do think that this Rams team is probably going to win the Super Bowl. I don't know if they do make it to the Super Bowl. There's not much in the AFC that's really stopping
Yeah.
them. And he's talking about bold predictions, but maybe I just make a quick bold prediction right now. Dylan Gabriel's not wearing number 8, and he's not on the Browns roster next season.
Yeah. I would have to say they're my Super Bowl favorites too, just because, like Justin said, the Seahawks did get a little bit worse. Obviously still a good team, but the Rams also upgraded their secondary this offseason, which was their biggest issue last year. So I don't really see any flaws in their team anymore.
No.
At least none bigger than any other team has. So I would have to say they're my Super Bowl favorite. Speaking from the Browns' perspective, though, obviously not going to be a very good season for them this year. But what do you think this says about their future? They get a good young player here. You think if they get a QB in the next draft, they'll be looking to compete, or you think they're still a long ways away?
I don't think they need a QB. I think Shadur Sanders is going to be a top five quarterback in the next 2 years.
You were talking about next year getting a QB to compete. I think this team's pretty far away from having a competing season. You know, when I am pretty high on Shadur Sanders, but when reports come out that he's losing to Deshaun Watson in the QB battle early in OTAs, it's not looking too good for this Browns organization. But they do have some solid pieces there. I don't know if winning is going to happen, like winning and competing for a playoff spot's going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years, but maybe 5 or 6
Yeah.
years down the road, they could be a team that maybe people start to fear in the AFC.
I mean, the Browns are kind of just like the Rockies. Like they're just always at the bottom and they're just not that good.
Yeah, they also got a new head coach, Todd Monken from the Ravens, but um, after losing Kevin Stefanski in the offseason, um, I mean, obviously that's not gonna like turn them around, but especially in the tough division they're in. Um, but yeah, if I was a Browns fan, I'd be pretty sad to see Myles Garrett go, but I'd understand.
Yeah, I feel like it just makes that season not even worth watching. I feel like, the only thing they had going was Myles Garrett surpassing that record, and that was about it. And I guess maybe watching the young quarterbacks they just drafted, but other than that, I just don't really think there's anything going for that team.
Yeah, and I did notice one thing. I don't know if it's true, but I saw that like one of the things in his trade was that he can't be traded to an AFC North team. Not 100% sure if that's true, but from a Browns perspective, you don't want to see your
Yeah.
star player on the Ravens coming and just destroying your team every 2 times a year.
I don't think they would have ever done that unless they got like 5 first round picks or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, obviously that's gonna change the NFL. Um, you know, Rams probably they're gonna be dealing with some serious contract, disputes here in a sec. We'll talk about that in a second, just when we bring up some of the other stuff that happened this week. But I think we should talk about AJ Brown next, just because it's another trade. But AJ Brown is traded from the Eagles to the Patriots. Everyone kind of saw this coming all offseason, but in exchange, the Eagles get a 2028 first round pick and a 2027 fifth round pick. Um, yeah, what do you guys think this does for the Patriots, wide receiver room, getting more weapons for Drake May, and what's their kind of ceiling and floor this season?
I think, it makes them look better than they did last year. That Stephon Diggs was kind of their wide receiver one, and I think them losing him and then getting AJ Brown kind of just puts them at the same level they were at before, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the trades that nobody was really that shocked that happened. It kind of was like the worst kept trade in the history of the NFL. Everyone pretty much knew by the start of the season he was going to be a Patriot.
Yeah.
But it does seem like a major upgrade going from a banged up torn ACL Stephon Diggs to a relatively healthy but does have some off field problems like Stephon, but AJ Brown. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do on the Patriots. I know he said that he posted something that he was excited for, like since he was a kid, to be on the Patriots. But I do believe it came out that it was an AI picture of him wearing a
Oh,
Patriots jersey when he was younger. So I don't know
does
if
it
that's
have the
100% true.
Nike logo on there or something?
But other than that, I'll be excited to see what he can do for this Patriots team that was just fresh off a Super Bowl.
Yeah. They have a really interesting wide receiver room now. Obviously, AJ Brown, they got Romeo Dobbs in the offseason as well. Kayshon Boutt's still there, and then Matt Collins is a solid wide receiver four. Um, this offense is pretty interesting. Obviously, Super Bowl is their ceiling. They went there last year. I know their playoff run was a little questionable just because everyone's talking about how they played playoff Justin Herbert and the Broncos without Bo Nix, but and then they kind of got annihilated in the Super Bowl. But obviously, that's their ceiling. Um, they could easily compete for the division again with the Bills. Um, but I guess we'll see if they were actually schedule emergence, like everyone says.
Yeah. We'll see a Will Campbell being a TSA.
All right. I guess if we got nothing else on that, we'll talk about some of these extensions that happened pretty quick. I guess we will start with Christian Watson. He's probably the biggest one that got. All right. I mean, I guess Drake London, but I have Christian Watson in front of me. He got a 4 year, $110.5 million extension to stay with the Packers. Um, what do you guys think this does for them?
Shout out to him. He was born in Arizona, so Arizona blood. Um, Hopefully he can come on the show one day. But I think it's a pretty steep contract. I know he can be that guy when he's healthy. The issue is he's never had more than 630 yards in a single season. So to pay him, all that money with him not being able to eclipse even 700 yards seems pretty crazy. Obviously, he does have the potential to be one of the best receivers in the league when he stays healthy. So hopefully he can just manage that, get that under control, and show everybody what he can do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything else to go off that except I just thought it was a little wild. He got that much money, not really just based off potential.
Yeah, that's what I saw. A lot of people saying that he wasn't worth it, but I mean, compared to the next one, Drake London also got 4 years, but he got $141 million. Just another receiver getting big extension. Um, you know, not much bigger than Christian Watson, like I would have expected just because of how good Drake London is. But what do
Yeah.
you guys feel about this? I know the Falcons quarterback situation is kind of up in the air, but obviously he's a great player.
Uh, yeah, I mean, he is one of the shining pieces on this team besides Bijan Robinson, so it makes sense that he's going to get that contract, especially when looking at the other pieces of this team. They do have some solid pieces, but like he said about the quarterback room, it's
Yeah.
full of two people that are not going to be able to walk by the time they're 36, which is
Yeah.
unfortunate. I don't want to like talk about people's injuries in that way, but at the same time, it's kind of a an interesting quarterback room to say the least. So it's obviously good that he got his money because he's one of the main pieces that helps them win.
Yeah, I mean the Falcons are kind of an interesting team, but it's cool to see them extend Drake London. That's my fantasy legend. I think I've gotten him like the last 3 years in a row, and he's always been good to me. But yeah, I think this one made a lot more sense than the last one.
Yeah, he's probably going to take that extension and go straight to Magic City.
All right. I guess going off that, we can talk about the Steelers' two extensions that they gave out. They gave 4 years to both Darnell Washington and Nick Herbig. Darnell Washington got 4 years, 42 million. Um, Nick Herbig got 4 years, $100 million. Um, obviously that works out different with all the guaranteed money and stuff. But Max, our resident Steelers fan, how do you feel about these two moves?
I like him. I think Darnell Washington has played his role really well, just being that guy that bodies everybody and gets that first down when you need it. I do wish they used him a little bit more. I think they'll be forced to use him more now that they've given him this money. I want to see them use Fryermuth too, but I think it's a good signing. I like Nick Herbig. I think he's made really good plays, and he's kind of just been the reason why our defense has been as good as it's been. I'm not disappointed in these. I think they both deserve the money, and I think this will kind of force them to use Washington more, which is a big complaint about him was just we don't get to use him enough or we don't get to see him play enough.
Exactly. I'm not even a Steelers fan, and to say that you like obviously we have the best tight end in the league in Trey McBride, but to say like your team has a 6'7", 270-pound tight end that's 24 years old. Think about that. Going out there and having to guard him, especially if he's like bulky and he just gets out there, catches some deep balls
Yeah.
and
Okay.
just throws these smaller DBs around. That's like obviously got to be so fun to watch on like it makes Sunday worth watching.
Yeah, I think the only complaint about him is just we don't get to see him more. Like he always has been able to play his role. I feel like, everyone knows he's hard to stop. He's always been hard to stop when he gets out there. He does what we need him to do, and I just wish they would use him more. I think it's forcing their hand. They've given him the money. They want to use him. They should. And I think it'll be interesting to see how how much they'll use him with a different offense and a different head coach system.
Yeah, obviously he's one of the, girthiest players in the league, especially at the tight end position. Um, so, to see him get more usage in the offense would, probably help him out a little bit. But yeah.
I see we're using our thesaurus for better adjectives this week.
The last extension we got here, the Seahawks keep one of their defensive pieces around and extend Derek Hall to a 3-year contract with a maximum value of $46.5 million. Obviously they lost some pieces like Justin said earlier. Boye Mafe leaves and Kenneth Walker leaves, just to name a couple. What do you guys think about keeping Derek Hall around and trying to at least keep some of the pieces from their Super Bowl win last year?
Think it's a cute attempt to match the Rams.
I mean, yeah, he's a good player, but what Max said, I mean, you're keeping Derek Hall over some of these bigger pieces, and you just see the Rams, excuse me, the Rams get Trent McDuffie, Miles Garrett. Like that's a little bit of a more lopsided defense at least.
Yeah, the Avengers have been assembled in the Rams team.
And they're playing in Los Angeles for the Super Bowl. So, it's not looking too good for these other teams in the league.
No, it's not.
I hope kind of going on the same thing. I know we kind of touched on it a little bit, but I do hope Aaron Donald comes back. I just want to see how much they can just blow these teams out of the water.
I know, dude. He's only 35. Like, there's guys in the league that are much older than him that
Yeah, it's crazy.
We got
Calais, Calais
Calais Campbell.
Campbell's like
yeah.
94.
Yeah, that's what I was hinting at, but I didn't want to say it.
Yeah. But anyways, that's what we got for the extensions. And then real quick, the Giants made some interesting moves. They signed Braxton Berrios, OBJ, and Juju Smith-Schuster. Obviously, it's cool to see OBJ come back home, but they just formed one of the weirdest wide receiver rooms I've ever seen, kind of. They got Malik Neighbors and Darius Slayton. Malik Neighbors coming off that injury, obviously going to be questionable, but he's really good. Darnell Mooney. Then they got Calvin Austin, who they added. They still have Isaiah Hodgins, and then obviously those three guys I named.
Yeah.
It's a pretty crazy receiver room to give to Jackson Dart, but it kind of matches the flow of this Giants team. It's good to see OBJ back after him battling for a spot back on some NFL roster. I didn't even know Braxton Berrios was still in the league, to be honest, even though he's a
Yeah.
dog. So I think it was on the Texans last year, maybe. And then Juju Smith-Schuster, went from being a star wide receiver with Big Ben, dancing on the Bengals logo, laying out Vontez Burfict to fighting for a roster spot on the Chiefs or the Giants, but kind of gives a little bit more depth to the wide receiver room when Malik Neighbors is coming off an injury who does look really rough. He's one of the more banged up people I've seen coming off an injury. Him running to first base, obviously not giving his full attempt at running to first base when he was in that softball game, but he was looking really bad when he was jogging over to first. And Darius Lane, obviously not a wide receiver one, but giving him a little bit Jackson Dart a little bit more options when passing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it'll be a fun offense to watch. Like Gabe said, it's weird, but like, I don't know. You have those younger guys, and then you'll have OBJ and Juju Smith to kind of, I don't know, lead them in a way. They're not really going to do anything this year, but I think I've seen worse off seasons.
Yeah, I don't. They're an interesting team for sure. They could kind of be sneaky. Obviously, new head coach Jackson Dart, second year. We'll see how healthy Scattaboo is, but they could be a sneaky team. I don't think they'll compete, especially with the Eagles and Cowboys being that division. Um, Commanders, who knows? But yeah, they'll be an interesting team for sure. Our last little piece of news: Russell Wilson does end up announcing his retirement. He's going to become a TV broadcaster. Um, I know Justin and I just had a conversation about former players becoming TV broadcasters not that long ago. What do you guys think about, just his career overall, his decision to retire? What do you think he brings to the broadcast booth? Anything about him?
Having like I know I mentioned this in a different podcast, but having someone with the aura of Mr. Unlimited, being a an announcer and a sports personality is going to be interesting to see the way he talks, especially if he's making picks for the week and he says like let's Broncos country, let's ride for the his prediction that week is going to be fun to watch. And kind of looking at his career, obviously has one of the more interesting careers, whether he's going to make it into the Hall of Fame or not. Does his legacy is not the greatest, and his stats aren't the greatest, but put together, he does make a pretty solid candidate. And I know both of them aren't in their primes anymore, but it does kind of seem like the Super Bowl runs they did have, was he really the best quarterback, and was Pete Carroll really that good of a coach? Because in their first season with new teams, they both got fired after having pretty bad first seasons. So kind of makes you think if it was really the defense carrying that team that made it to the Super Bowl this couple times, or were they really the geniuses and it's just kind of the age getting to them?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was really excited to see him kind of sign a deal in the broadcasting world. I mean, it's you don't want to wish on someone's career to end, but I thought if it were to end, it'd be really fun to see him broadcasting. It's kind of like the same boat I was in with Mike Tomlin. Like just seeing Mike Tomlin sign that deal with NBC was going to be fun. So I don't know. It'll be fun to see those two personalities broadcasting, but I think Russell Wilson will be great at it.
Yeah, obviously he's one of the best personalities I feel like out there. That quarterback room with him and Jameis last year was, obviously funny. Um, But, Super Bowl champion was obviously good on the Seahawks. Pro Bowler, All Pro, whatever. Um, but he went out kind of sad there at the end with the Broncos and Steelers, Giants. I know he was pretty decent on the Steelers, I guess, but obviously wasn't really at his peak for those last few years. But yeah, I'm excited to see what he brings to the broadcast booth now.
Yeah.
Exactly. You can say whatever you want about Russell Wilson, but you can't say he went under 500 when he was on the Steelers.
Not a lot of people can.
Yeah, that's pretty much all we got for the NFL though. A lot of big news is kind of surprising, but yeah, I'll skate it over to Justin and he'll break down the NHL for us.
Welcome back to the NHL weekly review. Uh, Bringing a little bit of fun to the this segment. Um, Obviously, two games down, tied up series, pretty electric so far. I do have to say. Vegas takes game one in Carolina, 5-4. Pretty crazy game. And then Canes take it in overtime in game two, 4-3, which is one of the craziest games I've ever seen. It was really back and forth. The Knights were up two, then it was Canes three up three with in a 5 minute span. Knights tie it. I'm gonna go more in depth on this maybe a little bit later in the podcast. We'll see. But insane series so far. And if you're not watching hockey right now, this is the best time to start watching with these two teams going head to head.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's been an entertaining finals for kind of what people are anticipating to be a really boring one. I think that last game I watched it and it was super entertaining to me. You see Brett Howden go score two to open up the scoring. They're up 2-0. Then, the Canes come back to score two quick goals after that to tie it. And then, on that third goal on that controversial call for the Knights was a whole wild thing I kind of wanted to talk about. Just when, Barbashev shot on goal, Anderson gets on top of the puck. Barbashev shoves the stick under Anderson to try and get the puck out of there, and then eventually gets it out of there and scores it. The whole argument that I've kind of seen about it is that the whistle wasn't blown before the puck crosses the line, but you're not allowed to like put your stick under the goalie. I don't know. I wanted to kind of hear what you guys had to say about that. I know that was a really crazy thing, and that's kind of like other than, the Canes being 6-0 in overtime this postseason, that was kind of like the big thing to talk about from this game.
Yeah, I mean, controversial calls happen all the time in sports. That hits close to my mom who lost the Stanley Cup off a controversial call back when the Sabres were in the were like actually playing and were in game seven. But it's one of those things where you don't want to let the refs decide how the game is. You just want to be able to go out there from the jump and be able to score and not let anybody else take advantage and just keep the win in your hands the whole night.
Yeah, obviously, as the listeners of this podcast know, I don't really know puck like that. Um, but yeah, sounds like it's been a good series so far. Obviously having a tied series is probably the best outcome you can have. Um, you know, I know both teams have looked very dominant throughout the playoffs. So to see it being as competitive as it is isn't really a surprise, but I'm excited to keep seeing how it goes and keep talking about it.
Yeah, that's kind of just a fun thing I wanted to talk about. I think if you know the rules, it's not even an argument. That's not a goal. And, the Knights coach goes out and says like 10 out of 10 times he's challenging that call. I understand it's a finals game, but you do kind of waste a challenge on that semi early in the game. And yeah, I thought it was interesting. I hadn't, this is the first NHL finals I've really paid attention to so far, and that was just kind of crazy.
Yeah, and just another thing to note on the series so far, the Golden Knights going forward, probably for the rest of the series, if maybe he comes back, I don't know, but they will be without McNabb. He did take a puck to the face at 87 miles an hour off the stick, so he's currently in the hospital right now after
Yeah.
taking that much blunt force to the face. One of the things that people mention is when you're not in the NHL, there's no reason to be wearing just the eye visor, but this kind of puts it into perspective. I know it's one of the big things in hockey from, listening to these people that play. It's not style to wear the fishbowl on your head, and protect your whole face. But seeing something like this, obviously, I don't know how much the fishbowl protects in this situation, but he definitely lost a couple teeth. It's not looking too good for him, but hopefully he can come back and you know, be better after this injury.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. You don't want to see it. That sucks to see. And like you said, I think he's probably going to come back out there and have that whole fishbowl in his head.
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't really got much more to add on to the NHL. I mean, obviously, if you guys do, you can chime in, but if you guys want, we could go right on to the NBA.
All right, but yeah, I guess the takeaway is just don't let the Canes get in overtime.
Oh, well, actually, I do have one more thing. Unfortunately, obviously I do like overtime goals like that, big moments. Who doesn't love watching that? But of course, it had to be Seth Jarvis that scored the goal, who I've previously been like negative on. So that's kind of just, karma coming back at me.
Yeah, just don't badmouth them anymore because I want to see the Vegas Knights win.
I'll try not to.
All right, okay. All right, you good to get into the NBA now?
Yeah,
All right. Obviously the Knicks took the first game down in San Antonio. Um, it was a good game. The Knicks kind of pulled away in the end. They won 105 to 95. Um, so now they're up 1-0. They're playing right now as we speak, but it just hit halftime. The Knicks are up 4. Um, game one, Jalen Brunson. I know he didn't look his best. He didn't even shoot 40% from the field. He went 2 for 9 from three, but he still dropped 30 points. Um, Cat had a decent game, but it was kind of just, their defense and how they kept the Spurs from really scoring. Wemby kind of had a bad game as well. Um, Shooting 6 for 21 from the field, 2 of 9 from three. What do you guys think of that game one? And, who do you think wins game two? And, any series predictions if your prediction changed?
That was a very gutsy win by the Knicks going into San Antonio with how this crowd has been and how their home court advantage has been, and stealing a win, especially by 10, is pretty crazy. Right now they're currently up 4 points at halftime. This has been a good series. I know we kind of mentioned that whichever team wins the West is probably going to win the chip, but if the Knicks keep playing on this level that they've been playing, which is like insane, they're insanely hot right now. If they can keep this up, go up 2-0 on the road, and then have to get to go back to Madison Square Garden up 2-0, that is going to be like insane confidence booster for this Knicks team. Having to play, at Madison Square Garden's never easy. So hopefully, if they do get a win, the Spurs can figure out a way to steal a win out in MSG.
yeah. I mean, I think going into the series, everyone was kind of doubting the Knicks, and the Spurs have been dominant. The Spurs were that team that everyone, they've been playing to that level. They beat the Thunder, and I really thought. And I still believe that the Spurs are going to win it. It really came down to who's going to win between the Thunder and the Spurs. But I think my prediction was 6 games wasn't that far off because this Knicks team is still really solid and they do have some really good pieces and they haven't lost a game since April 23rd, so they've been crazy.
Yeah, and
Right.
Mitch Johnson has been really good at coaching the Spurs team, especially when you have input from Greg Popovich still, who's still a big voice in that locker room. Is going to be big, especially coming down from how this playoff series has been going. But when the home court advantage is obviously big in the finals, but having these two cities in the finals with the home court advantage that their respective teams have is insane. When you're looking at the Knicks, who have Spike Lee and Tracy Morgan and Timothy Chalamet, and then you see like Wemby and the Spurs got those big old women down in San Antonio. Shout out Charles Barkley, but obviously they got those colors up in the seats. They're all the fans are in it. They're wearing the shirts that they give out for free. And like the Thunder, who have that guy that sits front row and doesn't put on the shirts. So it's just always a fun environment, especially when you're looking at teams that haven't been showing the most emotion after winning championships. It's super fun to see all the emotions going through the building every night.
Yeah, I've been underestimating the Knicks this whole playoff. If they win tonight, it'll be really hard for the Spurs to come back, especially going to the Garden. who hasn't seen a finals game in a really long time. But yeah, I think I predicted the Spurs to win in five, which obviously isn't looking too good right now. If the Spurs win tonight, I think they still win. If not, I'd probably slide over to the Knicks side just because being up 2-0 and then going back to that environment is going to be a lot to overcome for Spurs, especially with how young of a team they are.
Yeah, dude. New York might like actually light on fire the way those people actually react to these sporting events.
This is it kind of puts it in perspective. I've always thought this Knicks team was good, but how much I was, kind of just sweeping them under the rug in this playoffs. Obviously in there, I've kind of not really talked about them much, but seeing how they've played so far has just been insane. So it kind of it's crazy just to think about that. I I didn't personally think much about this team as an NBA fan that's watched the NBA for as long as I can remember, not thinking that this team could even win a championship, and now them being up currently in game two and potentially taking a 2-0 lead in the series is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, when I was kind of just watching them, I mean, I'd obviously I have my doubts around the Knicks just because the Spurs have been that good, but you can't deny them being the third team to have 12 straight wins in the postseason and just not losing since April 23rd is really impressive. You can't overlook how good they have been in these playoffs.
I mean, yeah, so it's like we covered it all. I don't really got much else to add. I don't know about you guys.
No.
All right. I guess we can get into our patented segment. If you haven't had the pleasure of listening to this segment before, welcome to the, Area 480 podcast, but also welcome to Three Up, Three Down. It's obviously the greatest segment to ever exist, as I said, but I'm gonna let Justin introduce it to you guys, and if he wants to say his first three ups first, then he can.
Okay, sounds good. I guess I'll start it off. This is a podcast or part of the podcast where we say three players each who we think have been the best of the best or whoever, for a funny reason, for a good reason. They're the ups. And we got the three downs, which could be something funny, something, not looking good, an injury maybe. We just talk about that. This is the segment that might be better than the Steelers' over 500 game winning streak record. So let's get right into it with my three ups, I guess. This first one, I was kind of flip flopping between an up and a down, but I figured I would go up for this one just because when are we ever going to get to say TJ Friedel is an up? I put him up here because he had the home run that bounced off Joe Adele's head and went into the stands. Um, so that's obviously pretty funny. Obviously, it does seem like a down for Joe,
Yeah.
who's had those three insane saves in the one game and has been solid defensively. But being able to say that I put TJ Friedel in my ups is kind of a crazy thing to say.
Yeah, shout out to him. We've been having some creative ups and downs, throwing out some names you never thought you would have heard. That's why it's a peak segment. But obviously, I didn't even think about this happening. But if I did, I probably would have put Joe Adele on my downs. So, that's good that you made it an up somehow.
Yeah. That was a good one. That was pretty funny.
All right, yeah. For my next one, I got Carl Anthony Towns in my ups. He, which especially for me, putting him in my ups after what I'm gonna say. I mentioned that his defense is kind of, it's solid, but it's not something I really want guarding Wemby, especially in a championship setting. But he did in game one when he was guarding Wemby, held him to two for 12, which is pretty crazy to think about. So that's why I had to put him in my ups, especially when they got that big win in San Antonio for game one.
Yeah, for sure. Cat's a fun player to pay attention to. It's going to be hard for Wemby to kind of worry about, guarding him from three and from the two range. So that was a good up.
Yeah, obviously he's a big part of the team. Um, you know, and they held the Spurs offense to only 95 points in the first game. A big part of that was how Cat was able to hold Wemby. I know Wemby did shoot a lot of free throws, but his efficiency, both, just overall and from three, were both not very good. And that's just a testament to, how big of a part Cat has played to this Knicks team throughout this whole run. Obviously, he was part of some really bad teams in Minnesota, so to, you know, be in the position he is now, it's a good thing to see for him.
All right, my next one. kind of selfish because I really want to get vivid detail about it in my ups, is the Hurricanes Golden Knights game two. Just because how insane that was that the Golden Knights, they're up 2-0 on this Hurricanes team. The Canes score one. The crowd starts to get a little amped. They score a second one. Crowd's going crazy. It's 2-2. They score a third one in a span of 5 minutes. Insane. The crowd is going crazy. And then, obviously Golden Knights have to pull their goalie. They're on the power play. 3 seconds left. Take a shot, knock it down. Now it's 3-3. They're going into overtime. They find, the person I don't even want to name, Seth Jarvis, knocks down the biggest shot of his career. Probably has bigger ones, but don't want to bring up his stats anyway. Um, and the crowd, oh my gosh, one of the craziest crowd pops I have ever heard in my entire life. I bet you Gold like Vegas could have heard that crowd pop when Seth Jarvis knocked down that insane goal. So I just had to put that in my ups.
Yeah, that was a great game. I was so entertained and, just getting into hockey and seriously watching it. This was a really fun game too. I had a lot of notes to take away from it just from how entertaining it was and how close it was. It comes down to a minute and 21 seconds and Mark Stone scores like to keep the game going and push it to OT is just it was insane.
Yeah, obviously I didn't watch the game, but it's it's cool to see Justin give a shout out to a player he doesn't like. Even though I don't know much about the backstory behind that, but yeah, that's a good up as well. I liked all three of your ups this week.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I worked hard on them. But you're not ready for the downs though. That's the crazy thing. Um, so I'm gonna kick it off. I really like bringing some energy to this segment. So I'm gonna kick it off to the former Penn State outfielder, a guy that invented the whiteout games for their football team, invented that. Like that's crazy to say. This guy that currently still has a Penn State offer. He left for a season and they don't know what to do. They're panicking. What do we do? Get Maxwell Brummett on the phone. It's going to Maxwell Brummett.
I absolutely love the introduction, Justin. You keep my ego at an all-time high, and I just love it. All right, for my first up, it's kind of gonna piggyback off Justin's last up was just Brett Howden opening up the game with 2 goals to kind of just I don't know to set the tone that early on was awesome, and I have no other things to note about it. I think I kind of covered it earlier too.
Um, I mean, yeah, again, like I said, I don't really know much about hockey, but
Exactly. That's a crazy game. Seeing people make big plays in the playoffs is always going to be exciting, especially for how insane this game two was. Like, what's there not to the whole game should be an up. So like, great up to start it off.
Thank you, thank you. For my next one, I know we kind of were saying it was weird, but I think this Giants offense is going to be something really fun to pay attention to. They're not going to be the best offense in the league, but I think it's an up just because of how entertaining they will be. I mean, Jameis Winston isn't really going to play a lot, but how can you not love that guy? Jackson Dart, it'll be fun to see him play another year. We'll see the status on Cam Scatterbo, Malik Neighbors being healthy. I think, they aren't going to be that good of a team, but they'll be for sure entertaining to watch. It's like the complete opposite of the Browns. The Browns aren't good and they don't have a lot to look forward to. I think this Giants team will be pretty entertaining.
Yeah, you just mentioned that. I was just thinking like this is going to be like the most insane post game press conferences we've ever heard.
yeah.
We're going to have
Yeah.
Jameis Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterbo, Juju Smith-Schuster up there, Odell Beck. Like this is just like the goofiest cast of characters they could put
Uh,
together for a roster. And I already know this is just gonna be a fun football team to watch. This team, this is gonna be a team that goes like wins 3 games, but everybody's watching them because they don't know what's gonna happen next. They're gonna see Cam Scatterbo running into a wall before a game because he wants to practice for the defensive line, and then Pastor Jameis in the background trying to eat the W and Odell Beckham and Juju Smith-Schuster practicing their dance to do on the opposing team's logo.
yeah.
Uh, yeah. Maybe they're trying to replicate what the Chiefs and Rams did, because Schuster won a ring with the Chiefs and Odell won one with the Rams. But obviously, I don't. think any of us think that's gonna happen, but they're gonna be an all-time fun team to watch, and I'm kind of excited to see how it goes down.
Yeah, for sure. I guess for my last up, um, it's not going to be a three up, three down segment without me putting some biased Pittsburgh stuff in here. And we're not going to have a lot to cover on it, but I put Darnell Washington's extension because I really like how they're, giving him money and prioritizing him, and it'll force them to use him more.
Yeah, obviously he's kind of just been like their depth tight end, like, been a good blocker and stuff, but. Obviously he's a talented player. He's a big guy. I know he joked about it, but he is. He's a threat to make defenders miss just with his pure strength alone. So to just, have weapons out there for whoever the quarterback is, especially with Michael Pittman and DK Metcalf, they could be a sneaky offense.
Exactly. You know, you always got to give a shout out to them. So I'm excited to watch this team.
Yeah, for sure. All right, if that's all of it, I'm gonna pass it to my boy Gabe. Ben Hughes, starting pitcher. He's been an absolute dog, nastiest changeup I've ever seen. Take it away, Gabe.
All right, I appreciate the shout out. My first up, is going to be Ketel Marte versus lefty relievers. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
Obviously, hit that walk off. It was the first of his career against the Giants off Matt Gage, I think. But finished off that comeback. They won that game. Then gave them some insurance in game one against the Dodgers with a two-run home run. Um, put them up 4-1. And then in the finale, the D-backs are down 2-0. They come all the way back with the help of Corbin Carroll and Geraldo Perdomo. And then Marte comes up in the bottom of the ninth against Tanner Scott with one out and just blasts a second deck home run to left field. Um, he's cooled off since his unbelievable hot streak, but obviously still Ketel Marte is really good. Anytime he sees a lefty closer in there, I guess, or just reliever in general, he's licking his chops as he comes up to the plate, I guess, and just ready to crank a home run to left field.
For sure. This was I just love seeing Marte do Marte things, and especially against the Dodgers, there's nothing more satisfying than, seeing them end that series on a win and splitting it against the Dodgers, who have been at the top of the NL for the last couple of years now. Nothing could beat the emotions I felt watching Marte hit that. It's like it's almost just guaranteed that's what he's going to do, and they bring a lefty in at this point.
Exactly. And, you know, this is the Dodgers, it's the Diamondbacks rival. It's hard not to enjoy watching Cattell hit a walk-off, especially for me when I work with, like, the whole company I work with essentially is all Dodgers fans. So getting to see Cattell Marte knock the literal stitches out of the ball as it flew up to the second deck and just like that is insane. Getting to say like, "Oh, Tani, what happened?" I know he didn't play, but you know, billion-dollar roster, you know.
Yeah.
Didn't end up beating the Diamondbacks, but it was a crazy game to say at the least. And also, it never gets old watching a Ketel Marte bat flip.
Yeah, he's been mastering them recently. Um, my next up is gonna be I don't know if you guys will even really care about this, but Texas softball had to shut them out. They go back to back. They beat ASU on the way to their second chip. So, I thought it'd be appropriate to shout them out. They had this unbelievable season. Obviously their rivals Oklahoma kind of ran softball for a little bit of time there through the 2010s. But now Texas goes back to back and, unbelievable season.
Yeah, I mean, they were a fun team to pay attention to. I was a little bummed out to see Texas Tech didn't win it just with all the Jason Williams following with his daughter playing too. How can you not find that entertaining? But yeah, it's fun to see someone other than Oklahoma at the top. They've kind of been that dynasty for years, and to see them go back to back is really fun.
I mean, yeah, shout out Texas. You know, KD played there, so the softball team is, you know, not much to say on them, but you know, KD school.
All right. And then my last up is going to be the Rams. I just feel like this is such a good trade for them. You have a chance to keep your Super Bowl window. I mean, obviously it's still going to be open, but have the chance to just become the best team in the league, like no doubt. And they go out and trade for a Hall of Fame edge rusher, probably the best ones we've seen in our lifetime. Feel free to argue that. but obviously it broke the sack record, two-time defensive player of the year. You just say, we have this young guy, we can move him to get someone who's still at their peak right now, going into his 10th season. And we don't really have to give up that much to do it, I guess. I mean, obviously we already talked about the trade, but that's an up for me.
I mean, yeah, this is a very solid Rams team. Seeing Miles Garrett in a Rams uniform already looks weird with the jersey swaps they've been doing. But like I said earlier, I hope that we see Aaron Donald come back and just watch them run the league. I don't know. As a Cardinals fan, I don't know why I'd want to see that, but it just would be something interesting to see.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you could definitely say the Seahawks poked the bear. It seems like the Rams are so mad. They're trying to get every weapon they can to beat them and not get, because I mean, those games were the most entertaining games of the season. When I knew they were playing, I'd turn the TV on and watch that game. They're always really fun to watch, but I think it's not even going to be close anymore. And the Rams are kind of just going to blow out the whole season on their way to the Super Bowl, or
Yeah.
blow out the whole league on their way to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I was gonna make a I don't know. I was gonna make a controversial take about this and like say that the Rams shouldn't have done it, but obviously it's like a for sure thing when you get the trade for Miles Garrett, you got to do it.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it's all three of my ups. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna give it off to Max because I gave it off to Justin last time. He's gonna start us off on the downs.
Yeah, for my first down, we kind of covered it. Just Corbin Burns setback. There's not a lot to add on to it. Just unfortunate. You really want to see him back playing baseball, doing what he loves, and now we're not going to see him till potentially September or not even this whole season. You can hope he'll be healthy and solid enough to be an arm in a playoff run, but that's about it.
Yeah, it's not something you want to see, especially with the amount of money they paid and the amount of hype he had coming to the team. I've been wanting to see him get like a full season in a D-back uniform. Hopefully, next season we'll be able to see that. And if they do make the playoffs, he comes back and he lights the field up.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, the D-backs pitching. Merrill Kelly's struggling right now. He's already given up 4 runs. He's not out of the third inning yet. But, their starting pitching has definitely been one of the weak points of their team as of recent. Um, Corbin Burns, they paid him all that money for a reason. He's really good. But, you know, seeing that setback is pretty disappointing. I know he has an opt-out in his contract after this year. Probably not going to take it now just because, the injuries and stuff. So, if he does, that'd be an all-time worst E-back contract, as Justin said earlier.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's just a bad setback.
For sure. My next one is kind of going to bounce off yours. It was just Tanner Scott's night. It's lefties in general, but as a D-backs follower and a fan, nothing is more satisfying than seeing the Dodgers fans shut up and split the series to the D-backs who they had all these expectations to sweep and not allow a run even. So
Yeah, this Dodgers team bus had enough time to get packed up and make it all the way back to Los Angeles by the time that ball hit the ground that Cattell hit.
for sure.
Yeah, obviously the Dodgers losing is, you know, an up for us. And obviously I had Cattell as an up, so I feel like that's all I need to say for that. But, I love the downs.
Yeah. Let's just keep pouring salt in the wound for these Dodgers fans. That's my
Yeah.
goal at the end of the night. All right, and for my last down, it's it's just how that whole Max Muncy Ildemaro Vargas collision that just didn't sit right with me. I mean, like I can kind of see why he would jump in the air if you're expecting Vargas to slide to the bag, but there was no other reason for Max Muncy to be airborne while Vargas is going to the bag, and I think it just kind of looked a little bush league, and it kind of ticked me off.
Is this gonna be a another reason to bring in the orange safety bag for the MLB? And
Yeah,
also, I'm kind of surprised that Max Muncy did end up exiting the game because this guy's like a big rock. I'm
Yeah, that's what I
surprised he
was
didn't
saying.
just kill.
He
I
yeah.
don't
ran
know.
into like 5'7" Ildemaro Vargas and had to leave the
Uh,
game.
I'm
I'm
sure
surprised
with
he.
that, I'm sure with that safety bag, Max Muncy's still gonna jump into Margot Vargas because that's just the player he is.
He also takes up the whole bag. So
Yeah.
I'm surprised he didn't just level Vargas and just keep on going to second. But, obviously, hopefully they didn't get injured that bad.
Yeah, even as a day one Max Muncy hater, obviously, I don't really think it was either guy's fault necessarily. Like, I think Muncy's jump was kind of over exaggerated, but it kind of looked like a Shea and one. But I
Yeah.
thought it was a little bit over exaggerated, but it kind of looked like when you're like walking in public and like you're walking like towards someone and like you go one way, but then they also go that way. So you like kind of get in that awkward situation where you're trying to figure out which way to go. It was kind of like that, but running at full speed. I think the person to blame is Ryan Nelson for just standing
Not
on the
yeah.
pitcher's mound and watching it
Yeah.
happen instead of running over there to cover first. Um,
hmm
if he just covers first, none of this happens. But I didn't really think it was necessarily either guy's fault. I thought it was kind of just like one of those like you don't know which way the other person's going, so you kind of just run into them.
Yeah, I think I could have changed that to Ryan Nelson being the down because you just, pan over to him as Max Muncy's halfway down the baseline and Nelson's just staring right at him and then decides to make a break for it. I think D-backs got to practice their PFPs a little more.
Yeah, you don't think you can get to first base before Max Muncy with like a 10-foot head start? Which Max Muncy, I do love you. You're a better baseball player than I'll ever be. Please come on the show. I want to make more friends than enemies. So everything I said is a joke, Max.
No, if Max Muncy comes on the show, he will hate me forever because I have a whole list of things to say to him. All right. Well, if you got nothing else to add, I'm gonna pass it to the greatest Rocky slash D-backs worker of all time, my boy Justin Hole.
Yes, sir. I'm excited to follow that. I'm gonna keep the trend going with interesting ups and downs. I'm gonna start off with Jazz Chisholm. Um, recently, he just got clowned on by the announcers because he was on Jimmy Fallon and they were surprised he was on the show only batting 235. So, that's something I had to put on there.
Yeah, I mean, you could say his counter that no doubt bomb, and then the Yankees broadcasters saying, you know, what did they say? Something like, "Would that put you on a talk show?" Or I don't remember, but I know they kind of got clapped back. But I mean, the Cleveland announcers weren't wrong.
Yeah, obviously Jazz hasn't been playing up to his expectations as a player, especially after going 30-30 last year. He came into the season saying he wanted to go 50-50. He hasn't really been playing up to his expectations as of this, the start of the season. He's been trying different styles of his pants to try to break out of some slumps he's been in. But, he obviously gets hate just because he's a like out there kind of guy. And, he got on a cover of a MLB The Show game and people didn't really like that. But obviously, he's a good player when he's, at his peak. But that was just kind of a funny little jab they threw at him.
Yeah, that was a good down, Justin.
He
Yes, sir.
doesn't like black people.
So, next up, this one's kind of like breaking news. I switched this as we were recording. I originally had Nick Castellanos getting DFA'd, but now it's this one. It wouldn't be vintage Justin without me putting Anthony Volpe on the downs because he just struck out looking on by Aroldis Chapman taking three fastballs straight down the pipe.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Man,
did
that's
just show Justin this clip. The Yankees are losing to the Red Sox, and Aroldis Chapman's in to close it out, and he throws three straight fastballs down the middle, like literally, not even exaggerating. Like two of them are right down the middle, and he didn't
yeah.
swing at any of them. Took all three pitches, and gate up.
Yeah, it's a rough look. I mean, trust me, I wouldn't want to get in the box against Aroldis Chapman. But if I'm an MLB caliber hitter, you are not going to catch me watching two fastballs down the middle, let alone giving up three fastballs looking. So that's ridiculous.
Yeah, he's following the trend of him watching fastballs down the middle, like when Valdez threw a fastball down the middle and he just sat there and watched it. So maybe all pitchers facing him just throw fastballs down the middle. He won't be able to catch up or tell what's happening with it.
Yeah,
And potentially he could sell that golden glove and maybe hire a pitching or a hitting coach that can maybe get him back into the swing of things.
Yeah, obviously I'm not hitting Aroldis Chapman, but that was pretty wild to see.
yeah.
All right. And last up, this one it's kind of a down, kind of not. It's kind of just, interesting that I thought it's the Marlins kind of showing why there should be a salary floor in the in the league because as of right now, Giancarlo Stanton is the highest paid player on this Marlins team, and he hasn't played there since 2017. So,
Really?
this is a kind of a crazy thing to talk about. Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
yeah, obviously that's kind of been the Marlins thing, ever since I've been alive. They did have that promising core, they had Real Muto, Stanton, Yelich, all those guys, Marcell
they
Ozuna. They
they
traded
even
them all
had
away.
they even had Derek Dietrich, bro. Like,
Yeah. They had, and then obviously, Jose Fernandez, RIP, um, passes away, but
D
and then they
Gordon.
they sell all their pieces away. And now they kind of just been mid ever since. I know they made the playoffs a couple times, but um, and obviously, Sandy, won the Cy Young there and stuff. So they've had some cool stuff happen, but um, with the new salary floor stuff that's being proposed, obviously I feel like they'll be forced to spend more money with that. That's just kind of a crazy thing to think about.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you could have just put the Marlins as a down. You wouldn't have even had
Yeah.
to add the whole stand thing, and I would agree with you.
Yeah, it's just kind of crazy to think about that, Mike was really good when he was still on the team, but to think that your highest paid player is someone that hasn't played there in almost 10 years. So people that are actively trying to help your franchise win and be relevant are getting paid less than someone that's, you know, doing the same thing for a league rival.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, so I guess that's all of my downs. I'm gonna pass it along over to my guy Gabe Watubowitz, perfect game Watubowitz, aka Newsboy.
Uh,
Oh, and
GG GG Dub the third.
GG Dub the third. Let's hear those downs.
all right, my first down, Justin mentioned it a little bit, was was Dylan Gabriel. You know, they get Jared Verse coming in and he immediately snatches up that number 8 from Dylan Gabriel. I know they're both wearing it right now at training camp as of now, which I don't know if the Browns are just like saying they expect Dylan Gabriel to not make the team out of camp or something or what's going on, but obviously you can't have two players wear the same number during the normal season, so one of them is gonna have to change, but just to have the new guy come in here and being like, yeah, that's my number now. Kind of aura loss.
Yeah, I mean Dylan Gabriel's just kind of had a rough patch the last year, and Jared Verse just snatched 8 from him. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, I can probably give you 8 reasons why he's not gonna have that jersey by the start of the season. But when you're trading a franchise, probably gonna get jersey retired player that's gonna definitely go into the Hall of Fame for someone, and he wants a jersey that your third string quarterback has, that hasn't have much history in the league, he's probably gonna get it.
Yeah.
So to whoever that front office is and the equipment manager that just gave him that jersey number, L teammate man, just giving away your current at one time starting quarterback's number just like that. Obviously, probably didn't tell him no, but it's
Yeah.
just kind of funny.
Yeah, Dylan Gabriel's not on perfect timing.
Yeah. Yeah, my next down is gonna be the Padres. We talked about them a little bit. Obviously, like I said, they're 29th in runs, 30th in pretty much everything else, last in the league. Um, and when you look at the players they have on their team, I don't want to say it's like unacceptable that you're last in offense, but like it really is with like the roster they have and all the money that they spent. It's really unacceptable to be last in offense in the MLB. Especially with like how everyone thought their pitching would be the weak point of their team. I know the rotation, isn't anything crazy, but to have that bullpen and just be wasting it with that offense is kind of been disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the craziest part about it is they're 1-9 in their last 10, and they're barely under the D-backs. Like they were kind of off to a hot start, and just the fact that their last 10 games have been that bad, and just their offense in general is pretty crazy to think about.
I I'm kind of happy that you did mention the Padres because that gives me a little bit of light to talk about how they DFA'd.
Oh yeah, you go back.
They DFA'd
Nick Castellanos.
that they DFA'd Nick Castellanos. This is a team who's been a pretty solid playoff contender the past couple of years, but to say that they went from, a core of Fernando Tatis Jr., Manny Machado, and Juan Soto to your first baseman being Nick
Yeah.
Castellanos, and you have to DFA him because he only is batting
Yeah.
a buck 91. Uh, obviously they can they can play better. Obviously they can play better than what they've been playing right now. This is a team that obviously didn't win the series against the Dodgers, but kind of kept them on their heels or on their toes a little bit. And it's going to be good to see them getting back into the swing of things. Tatis hitting some more home runs, figuring out how to do that again. So hopefully they can make it back up into the ups eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah. To get DFA'd from the worst offense in baseball is kind of wild, but
Yeah. Just need some bad news to start hitting soon so Castellanos can heat up.
I was gonna say, it's obviously unfortunate this is the one of the worst hitting teams in baseball, but now we're not gonna have like like a San Diego home burning down and then Nick Castellanos taking like 500 feet right after it happens.
I'm sure they could just bring up the Padres' offensive stats and he'll hit one that's that bad.
He's probably gonna get DFA'd, bounce around, and like, or the first team that he plays on after getting DFA, he's probably gonna hit a nuke because he got DFA'd.
All right, my last down is just the rest of the NFC West and just the NFC in general after Miles Garrett gets traded to the Rams. Obviously we talked about the Cardinals, but like the 49ers and Seahawks have to deal with that D line now. Obviously the Seahawks have Leonard Williams in that defense, that won them the Super Bowl last year. But Nick Bosa, I don't know how healthy he's gonna be, but he's defensive player of the year himself. Um, but nothing beats Miles Garrett, I feel like, and the rest of the NFC is just gonna have to watch as the Rams probably take the NFC this year.
Yeah, I won't have to sit through a Steelers losing to the Browns game again, dude, but I'm sorry that that gets passed from our problem to yours, Justin.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's kind of funny having two co-hosts that are both AFC North fans. That's a pretty bitter rivalry, and you guys are getting relieved of not having to have Miles Garrett, and then he just gets shipped over to the most stacked division in NFL, and now I have to deal with him. But honestly, I think this is honestly more of a down for Anthony Bradford, of the Seahawks. He's quite literally one of the worst offensive
Yeah.
linemen probably to ever touch a football. He's horrible. And the fact that he's going to have to worry about potentially going against Miles Garrett 2 times a year, uh, it's obviously not a good look for them. But the rest of the NFC West better be looking out for this team, with the new addition.
Yeah, and that's all my downs.
Awesome. These are good downs. I don't know if we really, I know we had some that kind of went together, but I don't think we all
Yeah.
had the same downs again. So it's back to back weeks is something different.
Yeah, especially with how much happened this week too.
Yeah.
One final note before we get out of here, game two of the NBA Finals is 80-73 with the Knicks winning, about to be the end of the third quarter.
Yeah, and kind of speaking on that, I don't know how I didn't mention it as an up, but they did bring back the Larry O'Brien at
Oh yeah.
half court, which is
Yeah.
obviously beautiful to see.
That was awesome.
Also, we didn't really talk about Mitchell Robinson. He did play in game one, right? He did play in game one. I know we talked about him last time, but yeah, just some quick notes before we get out of here. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. You know, um, be back next week, of course, as always. But yeah, thank you guys for
Yeah.
listening.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. We'll lose Justin for a week. He'll be in Daytona, but we aren't going to miss that episode.
Me going halfway across the country is not going to stop us from bringing you guys weekly joy. I will make sure of that.
As long as we all don't go in the same plane at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I did lay that out. No, all same plan at the same time,
Yeah.
because that'd be a mega down. All of us. I don't want to
Yeah.
say what I'm thinking, but you
All
can
right.
pick it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.